Hello, this is DK Golf Nut with the follow-on video covering the clipboard, and just love this actual paint and on this plane with the military Batcat design. It looks awesome. Redwing's done a fantastic job on some of their military versions of this, which near and dear to my heart. My dad used to fly in the Air Force. So anyway, we're gonna pop inside and take a look at the clipboard. So we've already covered menu, we've covered where the emergency procedures and regular checklists are. We've covered fuel and ground, the payload and CG, and there's some interesting things that happen there. Today we're going to cover the status page, and because this is going to be such a short one, I'm going to throw in some other things about key documentation and other files that you may need to kind of help you out here. But this particular page is going to give you the health and wellness of the Connie. When you're flying it, we're not started right now. So you can see that hydraulic systems are down, all that kind of stuff. The key to this page, I'm gonna scroll in a little bit here, right down here. So anything that's orange is abnormal, which could be in a slightly elevated stage. Red, danger, and then black is non-functional, it's destroyed. Definitely want to stay away from that. Since the motors are not started, you can see that oil, hydraulic systems, fuel, all that kind of stuff are showing that because fuel tanks are shut down, valves are closed, all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be kind of common, and I'll jump over and we'll start it up, but and you can see these things go away. And I would recommend that after you actually start the plane, whether you're doing it by yourself or you're using the AIFE, this is a good place to look. And we've referred to it in a couple of other areas where you were looking at fire extinguisher. My oil's not filled, so you can fill it up. This is a good place to go see that when you did those actions that it actually took place. So it's a good visual kind of to go to, quick reference. Um, so basic status by engine here. And you can see that, oil temp, obviously it's cold because it's not being run, but there's no oil pressure, which is why these particular skull and crossbones are there. I think the developers having a lot of fun with this type of stuff. And since these systems are down, you can see that ailerons are non-functional because they're driven by hydraulic pumps. Same thing with flaps, elevator, all that kind of stuff. One thing to note here is that as you're flying the plane and say you went into a really lean situation and your cowl flaps were closed and you started driving cylinder temperatures like extremely hot. And I'm going to flip over here real quick. So you can see that, at essentially, 260 degrees, if you run cylinder head temps over that, you're going to start getting damage. You're also going to see over here your oil inlet temps. If they get over, I think it's 110, 105, you start having problems as well. And they can be catastrophic. So some things that, as you get to fly this and you're flying it manually, you need to be looking at those particular things. In fact, in the next release of 2.4, the outside air temperature is going to have a huge effect on carburetor temps, cylinder head temps, as well as oil temps going forward, which is going to be very realistic And we simulated from minus 50 degrees to plus 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty realistically managed there. Ooh, boy, that was crazy. Um, so in the future, that's going to come very relevant, and you'll see those here with the engines turning yellow, red, and hopefully not destroyed. But as you're flying along, I know when I get into a cruise situation or even climb, I'll flip over here real quick just to see how the engines are doing. And if I start seeing stress on any of those, then I will go look at the indicators to make sure that I'm flying within the correct temperature zones that I need to. So this can be very useful. The other thing that it does is it shows you when you've overstressed um, the systems or the airframe. And a good example of that is if you deploy your flaps at over 220 knots, they will get damaged. And it shows up here, but when you go out and actually look at the airplane externally, you will see the damage on the flaps. And that causes the airplane not to slow down as much, becomes a little bit more unstable. The same thing for ailerons. Ailerons get damaged over 310 knots, which is not out of the realm because if the absolute airframe do not exceed is 296. So at 310, if you're in a dive and you have full throttle and you're running high manifold pressures and you're actually you know, descending at a high rate of speed, you could go over 310 knots fairly easy, which is why in a descent, the flight engineer is pulling out power in order to make sure that you're not exceeding that. So the ailerons are damaged at over 310 knots. The elevator here is damaged at over 300, and the rudder is damaged at over 305, and those are when you're using them in that state. If the airframe flies faster than that and you're not making control movements the way I remember it, that they won't be damaged. But if you are say 300 knots and you actually add a little bit of elevator to it, then boom, the elevators are going to be essentially destroyed, and it's going to be harder to control. Autopilot, will struggle to maintain control of the airplane and things like that. Same thing with landing gear. So the nose gear is a little bit more fragile because of the length of it. And if you land the plane and touch the nose before you hit the main gear, you could damage and actually collapse the front gear, which is not a good thing. You'll know right away that it was a problem. The main gears can be damaged. Say if you land very heavily and maybe even land it on the left side or the right side and you don't land equally, the landing gear can be damaged as well. And if you look at the flight manual on this, it shows how many, I think it's newtons or joules or something like that, that it takes to get the damage. But just pay attention to that. I mean, if you land it within a reasonable speed, it can take a little bit of a, descent hit and it's actually still going to be okay. But if you come in at over 150 knots, for example, and you land, it's going to pop the tires. And at the time when you pop them, sparks and all kinds of bad stuff is going to happen. And one of the things you'll notice it is hard, very hard to control it on the ground. And in fact, when it stops, you can't get it moving, or if you do, it's very, very slow because there's no wheels there, right? So you're just dragging the gear essentially. And those can all be fixed and repaired when you're on the ground at the airport. If you go back here to the ground and fuel, once you're on the ground, you can select fix and repair, and it'll go ahead and repair those particular things. Obviously, you don't want to damage it, but if you do, that's a way for you to go ahead and repair those. If something gets damaged and it will not repair, um, what I recommend is if you go over to the Discord channel, um, and on this is the Redwings Discord. You could see they have many projects, and since I'm on the beta team, there's a bunch of things that are locked, that aren't um, available to the public. But a couple of key things. One, if you want a sim brief profile for the Connie, this particular thing was something that I developed with the help of a couple of other people, using the flight manuals for a military version of this. And all of that data is out there. But the essential thing is if you click and actually load this profile, if you want to do long distance flights and things like that, it is very accurate as long as you're flying it within the settings that are here. And it goes by weight, altitude, and it tells you what your manifold pressure, BMEP, all that kind of stuff is supposed to be. I crossed out a bunch of things that weren't used for the actual creation of it because I focused on specific weights. But I will probably eventually compile that to make it usable for you if you want to manually fly this and actually tune it to the way that it should fly and get the fuel flow rating and all that kind of stuff for a long distance flight. So very, very useful. Documentation area. So on here we have this Redwing's fueling. Now it is in the clipboard on the menu page. Oh, excuse me, on the fuel page right here. But you'll notice that this has basically how many gallons and then how many gallons are in each tank type of a thing. A user wanted me to get how many pounds were in there. So I created this particular thing, and I'm going to open it in a Word document. Oh, excuse me, in this PDF version, and I added the pounds in by weight. So if SimBrief told you that it was, you know, 6,000 pounds, you would know that that's 1,000 gallons. Well, here's how many gallons go in tank 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 2A and 3A, as well as the pounds. So it gives you a breakdown for each one, which is very useful. The Connie had a specific fueling process to keep the CG located in the right place, and for the fuel burn and the way the fuel tank manipulations happened. So our simulations on fuel tank configuration is set up basically uh, directly off of this. There's a couple of things that you'll notice, and what I've put in this notes area is 2A and 3A with an asterisk, and that means when they are as full as they will get, essentially. You notice that the color over here changes from black to red. That denotes when that fuel tank is full and there's no more fuel that can go in there. So you see that continue down. You see here's where tanks 2 and 3 get filled up, and then 1 and 4 at the bottom. And then you notice that when 1 and 4 are filled, the only place that you can put it is in tank 5. So if you are doing any fueling, let me switch back over here. If you are doing and trying to do any fueling from this page, you're good. And you want to add it the way that it's dictated on that chart. If unfortunately you are trying to add fuel from here, what you'll notice is as soon as you grab this bar and move it, all of them will go equal. And here's an example. Now they're all 35%. Well, that's an incorrect fuel balance inside the airplane, and it will not burn correctly, and you're going to be causing yourselves problem for long distance flight because of the way that the fuel tanks need to be configured. So avoid this if you can. If you're just doing a short flight and you're not worried about things like that, no big deal. But you really should get used to manipulating the fuel here to match whatever SimBrief sets up. As an example, let's see, where am I at? Oh, documentation. So let's go back here. So there's the up-to-date checklists that are in the clipboard as well, but you may prefer to actually have them as a standalone document that you could refer to. You can get those here. But this one down at the end, this state file delete, let me pull up that right here. So this gives you the ability to correct things that may have hung on, like um, you know, you get an error and that error keeps coming up, like on the failures page or something like that. What we would recommend that you do is go out here to the state file and actually remove it. And these are the typical SimMarket, Steam, and Microsoft Store locations that it would put them. And you can go out there and verify where you have that located. But essentially, it's local cache, sim objects, and then the name of the airplane. And in there, there's a cameras file and a state file. And this little note right here, do not delete the cameras CFG, because if you've saved where your cameras are inside the cockpit, this gets saved into this particular file. And we have heard of people when they've upgraded from one version to another that their cameras disappeared. If you copy this file that's in this particular location, if you're Microsoft, and store it somewhere. And if that file ever gets laid over, you can copy and paste the file that you saved onto it, and all your camera locations, and this is for your custom camera views, will be saved. So hopefully that's useful for you. This is a very good site to go to in general if you want support. You just want to chat about things. Where users out here are very vested in the product, and everybody has their own slightly different way that they like to use the Connie flying. A lot of people out here are long distance, duration, cargo carrying, or passengers across the pond type of thing. So anyway, I'd recommend that you come out here. This is a good place for support as well. Asking it on other forums is probably not going to get you the correct answers. So we'd like you to come back here, ask the Redwings team, and as well as users that are on here that are very knowledgeable. So highly recommend that. So I think that gets us to the end of this. Basically, it's a conditions and wellness area. The next video that we're going to go over is the orders page, which has a lot of meat to it. And we'll go through what's going on. And I think I'll show you a preview of 2.4, how there's some different little icons that are in this area that'll be very useful to you. Again, through users asking for improvements on the product, the developer is very open to correcting those and adding features that kind of make sense as we learn about new ways that people are using the product. So hopefully that helps, and please make some comments below if you have any additional things that you want. But the next video will be orders, and then I will probably do a thing over the failures page, although I'm not an expert at it. Because I try to avoid having failures, but those will be my next things that are going on, and we'll let you know as we go along what other videos are going to be close to follow. Thank you.